Hello and welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today, I'm thrilled to announce a special collaboration with Innovate, a world-renowned and ambitious sportswear pioneer. Innovate will be sponsoring the Tough Girl podcast throughout the month of June, with new episodes going live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. Innovate is a UK-based company, and it is their mission to empower the world's physical and mental fitness through more fulfilling sporting experiences. I've been wearing Innovate trainers and sportswear since 2019 on all my adventures and challenges around the world. Most recently over in New Zealand while I walked the Tiara Trail, and in Spain when I was on the Camino de Santiago. With Innovate's support, I'm able to continue showcasing incredible female role models who take on adventures and physical challenges. Stay tuned for an incredible episode filled with stories, insights, top tips and advice to motivate and inspire you. To find out more about Innovate, visit the Tough Girl website or search Innovate Sportswear online. You can also use the discount code ToughGirl15, ToughGirl15 to get 15% off your next order.
My name is Rachel Durchslag, and I work with alternative healing modalities in a place called Asheville, North Carolina. And my practice is predominantly based around people in the nonprofit world. I used to run an anti-human trafficking organization. And after I had intense burnout afterwards, I wanted to figure out how to help nonprofit professionals stay sustainable in their work by having truly transformative self-care. And so I opened my practice to help people who are doing the heavy lifting feel supported in the world.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's incredible. Because actually, I think sometimes that's probably burnout of like sort of support workers and care workers is probably maybe not even talked about that much. It's almost like it's just, well, isn't that just a consequence of the job that you're doing?
I could not agree more. We used to call them the Martyr Olympics in the nonprofit world, where you were always kind of talking about how many days you have, worked straight and how many hours and how little you've eaten and slept. And it's such a toxic cycle because it celebrates basically self-sacrifice and harm. And the outcome of that is that people burn out, they're not sustainable, and they're bitter. And we lose incredible workers because we have this really broken system.
But I want to almost like take you back just to sort of like, I suppose, growing up in your earlier years and your younger years. Were you into travel and hiking and adventure then?
So I grew up in downtown Chicago. So nature consisted of a couple of trees that had gates around them because they were so rare in my downtown environment. So nature was and hiking was never a part of my life. But I grew up with this father who has an insatiable hunger for travel and adventure, and not just seeing kind of like the normal tourist attractions, but what's off the beaten trail, what's kind of innovative, what's exciting, what's quirky. And so we would travel all over the world growing up. And, at the time, I don't think I could appreciate what he was exposing me to, but it definitely planted seeds inside of me. And then it wasn't until I was kind of a little bit later in life, in my later 30s, when all of a sudden those seeds kind of blossomed and I couldn't get enough of what the world had to teach.
So what had changed for you then? Like, had you just reached a point, we've talked sort of about burnout. Is that something that you've experienced?
Oh, absolutely. I was so burnt out. I would sometimes just sit on my, the floor of my office and cry because I had nothing left in me. And I almost had a breakdown one day where I just could not kind of get myself together. I was in empathy fatigue. I couldn't just kind of function. And I realized I had to leave my career. And not only did I have to leave my career because I had founded the nonprofit, but I had to leave Chicago because in Chicago, I was always going to be the organization I started. And so I moved to the middle of the mountains of North Carolina, where I knew absolutely nobody. And so I had all this spaciousness and all this kind of opportunity to discover who I am. And it was only when I had that spaciousness and stillness and kind of a smaller, really a lot smaller community that I started to think, maybe I want to explore traveling by myself. And that was the first time I really started to get on planes solo and see what it was like to travel without companionship throughout the world.
Talk to me more about going solo for you and the challenges that you had to face and overcome.
Absolutely. So the first solo trip I ever did was to Iceland. And when I drove the ring road for 10 days, and I remember thinking, I'm going to be very lonely and it's going to be really hard. And so this is completely cheesy, but I literally one day was like, I'm going to make myself dinner and I'm going to invite in loneliness and I'm going to have a date with loneliness. And so I literally sat down and just imagined loneliness was at my table. And I said, let's talk. I'm really scared of you. I'm really nervous that you're going to take away my joy on this trip. And just that kind of like naming it and sitting with it, it stopped being so scary. And so I got on the plane just kind of knowing that loneliness might be my companion. But what was so amazing is that loneliness didn't show up because once I was in that car, in my rental car, driving around Iceland, seeing all the amazing sights, what I actually felt instead of loneliness was freedom, opportunity, awe, wonder. And people always often say, like, isn't it hard to travel alone? You know, that's really brave. And sometimes I just respond by saying it's actually pretty selfish because I get that period of time to do whatever I want, however I want, at the pace that I want. And I can just be still and silent and learn and take in and absorb and just have it be my own experience. So even though it can seem scary before you do it, I think once people take that big leap and trust what's waiting for them, oftentimes they're amazed at how extraordinary that experience can be.
I love how you shared that. Like really like going on a date with yourself, like to almost like face that fear, like, okay, I'm gonna be like, okay, let's sit with this. Okay, how is this gonna be? The word that you used said like the word like freedom and opportunity. And I think the word that I have found from doing so many solo things is just empowerment in terms of like, I have got no problem me going into a pub or a bar or going out for dinner by myself. I love going to the cinema by myself. I'm probably maybe I've gone almost maybe too far to the other side where it almost like doesn't bother me at all. Like I'm almost like too selfish because it's just like, because I'm literally like, I love my company. I'm great fun to hang out with.
But isn't that what we should all hope for? That we just adore being with ourselves. I think that that's a beautiful thing. And to be able to go through life feeling completely, maybe not completely, but deeply fulfilled with your relationship with yourself is aspirational. And in that way, you're never, you know, dependent or too attached to other people. You can just walk in this beautiful kind of self-assured place. And then anything else that you connect with is just an additional wonder and kind of gratitude on top of what you've already built. So I don't think you can possibly ever be kind of in too, deep relationship with all that you are.
One of the things that can happen when women, especially when they start sort of solo traveling and going on adventures, they get to spend this time with themselves and really sort of, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but, you know, find yourself and learn about yourself. And one of the things that you did back in 2015 was you headed to Spain. And I'd love for you to share more about your decision to head to Spain, to walk the very famous Camino de Santiago, and what that experience was really like for you, just heading out there to go on this sort of pilgrimage.
Absolutely. I wanted to do the Camino de Santiago because it seemed like a way to bring kind of the biggest parts of my life together. My spiritual life, even though I don't identify as Catholic, I'm more of a kind of Buddhist spiritual. I call myself an a la carte spiritualist. I just take a lot of different things from different religions and kind of craft my own practice. But my spirituality, my love of travel, and my love of hiking. And I really saw those all coming together at the Camino. And so that's what called me to it. It's also incredibly accessible. There are, it's almost impossible to get lost on the Camino. If you're nervous about being alone, you will meet people all day. It's an incredibly kind of just beautiful container for being able to start journeying alone. The challenge is, before I went on the Camino, I thought that I was just going to do it the way that I wanted to do it. And I didn't have this humility about learning from what the trail had to teach. And so I messed it up. I decided I wasn't going to talk to anyone because I used to be very shy before this experience. And I didn't want anyone to keep up with me because that would mean I'd have to talk to strangers. So I went into the Camino with the kind of determination to out hike everyone so that I wouldn't have to make any friends, which now me today is just laughs at how ridiculous that was. But I hadn't done my work around shyness and belonging to actually have an inclusive, connective experience. And so what happened? I fractured my leg. I hiked too fast. I didn't honor my body, and I ended up passed out in a forest in excruciating pain and had to come home and go into a walking boot. And what I realized is that I think of the Camino as having her own energy, that the Camino basically was like, you're not ready. Go home, do your work about belonging, about loneliness, about having to prove yourself physically. And when you've done that emotional work, you can come back to me and you can try again. And so I spent 4 months not only rehabbing my leg, but rehabbing my heart. And when I went back again to finish, I was in such a different place and I made all the friends and I drank leisurely Americanos and I enjoyed the atmosphere and I listened instead of kind of put onto the experience what I knew. And I absorbed kind of what I was supposed to grow into. And it was just phenomenal.
Was there a point when you went back, either on the journey or at the end, like in Santiago de Compostela, where, it's probably not the right word, but was there a point where you either felt whole again or felt healed again or realized, I don't know, that not that things were going to be okay, but that you're almost like over, you're burnt out and you were ready for the next steps, the next part of the journey?
Well, if it's okay to go a little bit woo-woo on this podcast.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I love it. Thank you. I was hiking on the path and there was this detour, and I'm usually not one who takes detours, but it was to a meditation, sanctuary. And so I just thought I have to go. And I went, and there was a woman who greeted me there. And she and I looked at each other, and within 30 minutes, we were just hugging and crying. It was like this homecoming, as if like the Camino had given me this, almost like this, almost this person to bring this message. And we talked about, overcoming these challenges, and we talked about what it meant to self-actualize. And it was at that moment, meeting that woman, that I really felt like the transformation I was meant to have in that time period had happened, and that she was there to help me pause and integrate it so that I could take that home with me. And so by the time I left, or I arrived at Santiago, I really walked into that cathedral, embracing this upgraded version of who I had become on the trail.
What was it like leaving Santiago and this experience, this amazing solo travel experience, and then going home? Was it easy to continue to live the new life that you wanted to live and embrace the lessons, or did you fall back into maybe old habits?
That's a great question. So my friend she always says when she comes back from a trip that she's suffering from RFS, which is return flight syndrome. And I really resonate with that, because the way I've come to conceptualize it is that, travel, which is very different than vacationing, to me, travel is about expansion and learning and growing. I always think when you travel, you literally energetically expand all that you are. And then when you come home, what's waiting for you is the old container. And it can be an amazing container. It's just so much smaller than what you've become. So I think that process for me of always integrating and then kind of expanding who I am at home into who I was on trail or while traveling is a very tough process. And until I really realized what was happening, I would often be depressed when I came home after having these magnificent experiences. And so now I try to be very intentional about how do I bring that new expanded version back and help me at home become that, if that makes sense. And it's one of the reasons on my website, While I Walk, I have these 2 free documents for people. One of them is reflections on the return, which just to help people with that integration process, because it can be so fragmenting. But I want to share one thing that was really important. It was my last day after I'd actually completed the Camino. I was waiting for my dad to join me. And I was so sad. And I was like, I'm just going to walk a little bit the ending again, just while I wait for him. And I was crying and thanking the trail for all that she gave me. And I got this really interesting, clear message, which was there is no reason to be sad because we are always pilgrims on our journeys. And just because you're no longer walking this pilgrimage does not mean that you have stopped your pilgrimage. In fact, you're just beginning a lifelong pilgrimage of seeking and learning. And then for some reason, I got this kind of feeling that I needed to get a little dot tattooed on my wrist to remind myself that I'm always walking my Camino. And so I like ran to the tattoo shop and I got a dot tattooed, and nobody like understood what I was asking for in English and the Spanish translation. And it was this kind of fun, chaotic experience. But what I have found is every time I hike, I'm gifted another piece of wisdom. And I always get another dot tattooed after one of those profound experiences, so that I now have a trail of wisdom on my arm to remind me of all I've learned while walking in the world.
How many dots do you have on your arm now?
I think the last time I counted, it was 21.
Amazing. And do you have any other tattoos?
That's it. I always tell people I'm very tattooed and that I have 21 tattoos, but they're just very small. So no, that's my only one so far.
I really love that. The fact that you really followed like your intuition in terms of wanting to get that dot like on your arm. It's like this is your first. I'm talking like I've got tattoos. I don't have tattoos, but I've always wanted to get one. But I love that. So, and the lessons that you're learning, the wisdom, and talking about the RFS, return of flight syndrome. I think that's definitely something a lot of people have to deal with. I think there's two things that I notice when I come back from trips. One, if I fly back into London, it's like as soon as I am off the plane, it's like I start walking quicker. And like, you go down to, I'm going to sound very the subway, the metro, what do I call it? The tube in London.
Tube,
And it's just like, it's almost like you're back in the race. Like you've got to walk quicker because you're busier, you're important. And it's like, I'm chilled, I'm relaxed, unless I'm, trying to catch a train or something. And then, yeah, the adventure blues, the end of a journey and just almost like heading back to reality. And I think adventure blues is almost something I don't necessarily, do I get it now or not? I don't think I do anymore, because either I've got another adventure that I've booked in that I'm looking forward to doing, and also because I don't have a life anymore that I'm trying to escape from. I love my life. I sometimes actually, it's almost a flip for me. It's just sometimes when I'm on trail, I'm like, oh, this has been a really hard couple of months. And actually I'm looking forward to going home to get some rest and relaxation. So I'm sort of flipped to other people, like, who don't want to go home, don't want to go back to their normal life. And so after the incredible experience, that you had in Spain, how did you go about choosing your next walk, your next hike? Did you sit down and create a massive bucket list and write down every hike that you wanted to walk? Did you create a vision board? Is it more simpler than that, more complicated than that? What does that look like for you?
I wasn't sure that I was going to do kind of a big walk or a big hike again, but then I always find that it's like things keep showing up in your life. It's the universe saying, I want you to pay attention. And all these people had mentioned the Annapurna hike. And then I randomly got an email from an Australian travel company. I have no idea how I was on the listserv, saying hike the Annapurna and raise money for disaster relief. And so I thought, okay, universe, you're obviously sending out an invitation. I hear you. And I went, and I thought, well, while I'm in Nepal, I should one should hike to the base of Mount Everest if they're already there. And after I hiked to the base of Everest and really had this unbelievable spiritual experience of watching the sun rise over the peak of Everest, that's when I felt something in me was just ignited that said, you have to keep walking. And it's a really good question. I think it's kind of like a smorgasbord of ways that I find hikes. I love blogs. I love following people. I love books. And oftentimes when you're hiking, you meet people from all over the world and you ask them, what have been some of your most exciting, beautiful, memorable hikes? And then they share their passion places with you. And then you go home and research them. So it just kind of is this like stunning snowball that continues to grow all the time.
Being a solo female, going hiking, what would your advice and tips be for other women who want to get out there and go on adventures and challenges? What would you say?
one thing that I say to myself that's helpful is and this has just been my truth, but I always say just anticipate that there will be lonely times. So instead of being fearful of that, just know that I always have like one lonely day. I'm like, oh, it's the lonely day. That's just today. It will pass. And if it feels lonely, stretch yourself and go downstairs to the pub, go and talk to someone, go compliment someone, go ask a question and lead with curiosity. There's so many ways to soothe the loneliness that often lead to really stunning connections. And I would also say never doubt that, I mean, I don't think we would question a man who travels solo. So why should we ever question our ability to do it? I think there's just this weird kind of cultural storyline that women aren't as safe or aren't as capable. I have never felt unsafe from a person. I've definitely felt unsafe from getting lost in the middle of, mountain ranges. But I think if we just, say to that fear narrative, that's not my story. That's not my truth. In fact, I'm unbelievably capable. If you can navigate the subway, the tube system in London, you can navigate travel by yourself. And so I think it's just believing that, of course, you can and reinforcing that message. I think a lot of people like to put their fear narrative onto you. They'll say,
Yes.
oh, but what about sexual assault? And what about this? And I think it's really helpful just to say, please don't bring that to me. I'm an intelligent, aware person. I understand that there are dangers everywhere, more likely in my home than they are out in the world. I don't need to hear those fears. Thank you. Because I really don't think that living in fear helps us be more safe. I think just being aware helps us be more safe. And that's a very more proactive energy.
So you're vegan. You do have actually a cookbook as well called While I Walk, Vegan Cooking from the Vast Beautiful World. And I'd love to just hear more about what it's like being vegan while you're hiking in some of the different countries, what your food staples are. How do you make that work for you when especially in maybe the more challenging environments or when there's like a language barrier as well, and you're trying to eat, but there's obviously limits on that. I'd love you to share more about, being vegan while you walk, while you hike.
It was interesting when I did the Camino, my friend said, you can't hike the Camino and be vegan. And I thought, well, of course you can. You just have to be a little more prepared. I think we're in an amazing moment in kind of the world kind of awareness increasing about plant-based food, because it's been very rare that I've gone somewhere that hasn't accommodated me in some way. I oftentimes book my trips through travel agencies that do what's called self-led tourism, where they'll like do the bookings for me. And I just kind of show up with my maps and get to kind of just plug into what they've already kind of, reserved. And they always tell the places I'm staying, she's vegan, but I could do that on my own as well. And it has been shocking how amazingly accommodating people have been. I'll come downstairs in the morning to an entirely vegan buffet. And what I've been told by people is that it's actually really refreshing for them, because oftentimes they're making the same thing every day for the next round of hikers that are showing up. And to get to actually like get out of their kind of norm and comfort zone is a delight. So oftentimes people say, thank you. I really enjoyed the challenge. So all of that being said, though, in my book, I have a section at the end that are like 100 tips for adventuring in the outdoors. And one of those pages is 10 things to help you be vegan on trail. And there are just some staples that I always bring with me: dehydrated hummus, dehydrated cheese, obviously bars and nuts, that just those little bits of protein I can put on any salad or pasta dish and I'm good to go.
Where's another walk that you've done which, really sort of impacted you in some way, or I suppose maybe you learned a real lesson from it?
I walked from the Dana Nature Preserve to Petra in Jordan. And I went to Jordan right after Trump was still president in the US, unfortunately. And he had just done some awful thing in the Middle East. I forgot. It was something with the embassy. And the anti-American sentiment was high. And I was nervous about going to Jordan and what that was going to be like. And I got there and I met with my guide, and I was amazed at how welcoming and loving everyone was towards me. And there was a moment we were there on Christmas where everyone was talking about their Christmas traditions. And I said, I didn't have any. And he said, why? And I just kind of paused and I said, well, I'm actually Jewish. And I was a little nervous about sharing that. And everyone there was like, oh, we're friends with so many people in Israel. Welcome. Please, and it just was amazing because it really made me confront some of my preconceived notions, assumptions, and it reinforced just the beautiful humanity that's underneath so much conflict and unrest. And my favorite moment from that trip was every morning, the entire staff would listen to this recording of the Quran and pray. And I just had some really beautiful connections with the people who were supporting us. And the day I left, the man who was in charge of cooking gave me the CD of the Quran. And he said to me, listen to this with not your ears, but with your heart. And to me, that just again was such a beautiful invitation to this gorgeous humanity that we get to be part of.
What do your hikes look like in terms of day to day? Are you quite go with the flow? Are you more structured? Do you like doing big days? So I quite like getting into moving meditation. I don't really like stopping that much, partly because also I seize up now. So it's better for me to just keep on moving. And I like just getting to my destination because then I feel as though I can properly relax. But I know it's different for everybody. But what does hiking look like for you? Maybe you could talk through a typical day if there is one.
I love hiking alone, even if I'm on a trip with a friend. All my friends know that it's really important for me to be alone on trail because it's how I regulate, it's how I listen, it's how I learn, it's how I process. And so I'm usually, and I like to have as much quiet on trail as I can. So I'm often up very early. I do my morning meditation. I'm on trail as early as I can. And I like you, I just love to move as much as I can. I'll usually, try to spend most of the day on trail, getting in as many miles as I can. And then when I finally get to my destination, just luxuriating in a nice shower and a really good feeling of accomplishment.
One of the treks which I know that you've done and that I have been planning for, this is the third year it's not going to happen just due to timings. But myself and one of my friends, Gemma, we have been wanting to do the Tour de Mont Blanc trek for quite some time now. And I'd love to just hear more about your experiences from taking on that adventure, that hike, that walk.
I had a feeling when I'm like, she's going to want to do the TMB. I'm so excited. So I always say I've been so blessed to do so many hikes, and the TMB is by far the most beautiful hike I think I have ever done. There is something really special about getting to hike through 3 countries in one hike and to really feel the cultural differences, even though they're just a few miles apart from each other. You'll find the hut systems are really different. The ways of expressing joy and celebration are really different. Like in the Italian huts, everyone's smoking cigarettes and drinking beers and just being really kind of jovial and loud. And in the French huts, they bring out this instrument after dinner and everyone sings traditional French songs. And, in the Swiss huts, it's very quiet and kind of everyone's just eating chocolate and being very contemplative. So it's this amazing cultural experience within the backdrop of the most stunning alpine scenery that I've seen. And the TMB will test you, at least it did me. Every day you're climbing thousands of feet and seeing unbelievable sights, but really pushing your body to its limit. And there's something, exhilarating and humbling about the experience. So I am so excited for you to do that hike. I think you will love it.
You talked about, pushing your body, especially when you're climbing to these altitudes and, you are carrying a pack. There can be a lot of wear and tear from day after day. I'd love to know just a little bit more about the fitness and the physical preparation that you do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think because I always have my next hike planned, mentally, I'm always in training, which is really good for me. Because if I'm in a hard workout and I'll be like, oh, this is really hard. I'm like, but I'm training for this and I have to push through. So I'm someone where fitness really helps my mental health. It's just such a, key component of me being a joyous, kind person. So I am at the gym probably 4 times a week and I try to be on trail every week. and get a full day in at least, and then try to do an overnight backpacking trip once or twice a month, even if it's just a night, because I feel like nothing really, I mean, I'd love to hear your opinion too, but nothing really prepares you for trail like being on trail.
Truth.
Yeah. You can do a million lunges and they help, but like really it's just being on trail with your pack that's going to be what gets you up those mountains when you're in beautiful destination.
I love it when I am just hiker fit.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not, obviously it is physical, but when you get so hiker fit, it's not physical anymore. It's just more, it becomes more like mental and emotional, or it allows you to, I suppose, have, for me anyway, to switch off more and to really like appreciate the environment, because I still huff and puff when I'm like, doing some big climbs. And sometimes I'm like, what is this? But generally, you're going at a very low heart rate, steady state. It's just continuous, and you've just got that built-in endurance to go kilometer after kilometer, mile after mile. And I think the one thing that I've noticed is, for me, is with fitness, is when I lose my fitness, it is just so hard to get it back. So I'd rather just try and maintain it, but get the balance right without being burnt out from doing too much. Because so I've been walking for like the past like 5 months with like a 20-day rest, and I'll have like another 15-day rest before the next adventure. So it is like definitely a difficult balance and stuff. You mentioned at the beginning that you're involved in sort of alternative healing, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and what you found that has worked for you. And obviously it can be very different for individual people, but I'd just love to hear more about, maybe some of your favorite practices and experiences.
So I work with a lot of modalities, some that people have often heard of, like Reiki or emotional freedom techniques, and then some that most people have never heard of, like holographic memory resolution. I always say that you don't build a house with just a hammer, that the more refined your tools, the more beautiful your structure. And so I've gotten certified, I think, in 8 different modalities, so that when a client comes to me and says, I'm having this anxiety, I can't overcome this challenge or this block, I can think to myself, well, is this good for hypnosis? Is this good for Reiki? Is this good for bars? And then get in there. And then hopefully, I always say my goal is to help people live more spacious and joyous lives. So I love having this broad toolkit, and my clients energize me. And I know that everything I learn on trail, I bring back to my practice, and that I get to share that, if not kind of like on a higher level, then actually just, share encouragement and stories. So those have been the practices I love to share. And personally, I'm always on a self-growth journey. I feel like hiking is such a key component of that, but I've really found that working with like therapies that do things like internal family systems, I love very much. And I'm also a very big fan of working with plant medicine. And I find that plants and psychedelic plants have just taught me an unbelievable amount about who I am and what I can become.
Rachel, what's going to be your next hike?
I have a fabulous summer coming up. I'm really excited. I'm going to Romania to hike in I think it's the Transcaucasus Mountains. I might be saying that incorrectly. And then my friends and I, in the United States, there's often lotteries for the really popular hikes. And we won a lottery to hike around Mount Rainier, which I think is the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states. And it supposedly has 0 flat in the entire 100 miles of the hike. So that's been motivating me. And then I'm coming up to your area. I'm going to go to Snowdonia for a couple of days. I'm really excited. And then I'm going to end the summer hiking in the country, Georgia.
Oh, fantastic. So when are you going to be in Wales?
I'm going to be in Wales on August 10th or 11th and 12th. If you would like to come hike with me, come hike with me.
Oh, I would love to, but I am so close to Snowdonia. Well, 45 minutes away.
Oh my!
I'm going to be down in the southwest of England, walking the southwest coast path.
Oh, I've heard it's amazing. I'm so excited for you.
I'm so excited for you.
That is fabulous.
Well, Rachel, honestly, thank you so much. You sent me a copy of your book, While I Walk. And you are on social media, and I'd love for you just to share, where can people connect with you? How can they find out more about your passions for hiking and adventures? Where are you most active?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a website, whileiwalk.com, which has the book and it has some excerpts from it. And then my Instagram is While I Walk Book. So I would love for people to also interact with me and share with me what are their favorite hikes and what keeps them going on trail. I really appreciate learning from my community and getting to be inspired by awesome people like you. I can't wait to do a deeper dive about all that you've done. So thank you for bringing some travel dreaming into my life today.
Rachel, just incredible to speak to you. It's just been so wonderful to chat. And I'd love for you to have the opportunity to share your final words of wisdom, final words of advice for other women who want to have more hiking in their life, to go on more adventures, to go on solo travel. What would you like to share with them? But please don't say, just do it. And you can take that advice in any direction that you would like, really.
I think what I would say is, create some time to sit in quiet and stillness and tune into your heart around how you feel about adventure. And if you feel called, if there's all these mountains of fear on top of it, but if there's that little sparkle of excitement about being in the world, doing it on your own, then allow yourself to start small. Go out to a movie by yourself, go on a little local walk by yourself, go do something like the Camino, and keep building until you're ready to really just go and claim all that's waiting for you when you are willing to walk solo in the world.
I love that. Find that sparkle of excitement. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on Tough Girl Podcast. Incredible to speak to you, and best of luck with all your hikes and adventures. And I hope we get to go hiking at some point in the future together.
I would absolutely love that. Have an amazing next few months.
Hey tribe, I really hope you enjoyed the episode with Rachel. What an incredible hiker. What an incredible story. Everything that we have talked about today will be available in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. So please do go and check it out. For those of you who are brand new to the podcast, this episode is being sponsored by Innovate. And if you follow along with some of my hikes and some of my adventures, you'll know that I have been wearing Innovate for many, many, many years. But I just wanted to share a couple of the products that I was wearing out in New Zealand and how they did, basically. I think one of the reasons that I really like Innovate is because of the quality of the products, because the gear that I wear takes an absolute battering. I'm not just wearing it at weekends. I'm wearing it day after day, week after week, sometimes months and months and months, daily. They really do get put through their paces. So a couple of the items that I wore while in New Zealand, which I absolutely love, the Innovate shorts, black shorts, really simple. They do have I don't even know what you call it, like where it's like extra pants for your knickers, so you don't need to wear knickers with it. They are great to wear, really breezy, and that sounds wrong, doesn't it? Really breezy and really flappy. But yeah, super comfortable to wear. I was wearing them every single day, absolutely loved them. The other thing I was wearing every single day was my mid-layer pink hoodie, which is gorgeous. I obviously do love the colour pink. I did make one adjustment to it though, which I think is one of the best things that I have ever done. If you look on social media, you will know that my hair is pretty long now. So my hair is down to probably just shy of my elbow, and I really like wearing it in like a high pony. But with the mid-layer pink hoodie, when I put a hoodie on and I've got so much hair, it doesn't really fit, and I feel a bit stupid like when I've got the hood up, and it doesn't work when I'm sleeping in the hoodie. But what I did before I left is I got my mum to like cut a hole in the top of the hood where my high ponytail goes through. So now what I can do is I can put my hair in a high ponytail and pull it through the hood. So I can have the hoodie on, which goes over the top of my head, covers my ears, zipped up the front so the back of my neck is super warm. And oh my goodness, that is absolutely fantastic. I will be suggesting that little change to Innovate. But if you've got long hair, seriously consider doing that with any gear that goes over your head. The other piece of gear which I was wearing pretty much most of the time was my Storm Shell pink Innovate waterproof jacket. Now, I actually do have two jackets. I've got a blue one and a pink one, and I alternate them between hikes. Both of them now, to be honest, are pretty destroyed and pretty worn out. And you may be thinking, well, what are you going to do with them, Sarah? Are you just going to throw them in the bin? No, I am not. Innovate have actually started a new policy, which I am going to be checking out. So I'm really excited. I'm actually going to be heading up to the Lake District to go and visit their store and to find out more about their sustainability policy. And one of the amazing things that they started, which they actually started in 2023, called, I hope I say it right, Renovate. So it's RENOV8. Renovate. Basically, this is focused on repair of clothing and equipment. So it's about sort of like lengthening the life cycle, and the life cycle of the products is already huge because they're such good quality. But if they have been damaged, I was so gutted actually when I think I was on the Wales coast path with my blue Storm Shell waterproof jacket on, and I walked past it was a nail on a gate post, and I just didn't see it, and it sliced like through my jacket, which I was just gutted about. But it's things like that you can get repaired. So I'm going to be visiting Innovate. I'm going to be checking it all out, and on the next episode I will be filling you in with more information about how that went. But yeah, really excited. I'm also going to be collecting some new products as well for myself for my next challenge, which I don't know, it might have come out in some of the episodes, but I'll tell you anyway. The next big challenge that I'm going to be taking on is actually going to be the Southwest Coast Path, but I will share more information about that. I'm going to be taking that on in August of this year, and I will be wearing Innovate products as well. Now, if you are interested in buying Innovate gear, visit their website, innovate.com, and you can also use a discount code, ToughGirl15, ToughGirl15 to get 15% off your purchases. Thank you again for listening to the Tough Girl podcast. I really do appreciate all of your support. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.